The knock came at exactly 12:03 a.m. Not loud, not desperate, careful. Vincent Torino paused mid-sip, eyes lifting slowly from his glass of aged whiskey. No one knocked on his door at midnight, unless they were lost or already running for their lives. He motioned to the guard. The door opened. A woman stood there in the dark, soaked from the rain, breathing too fast. One arm wrapped tightly around a little girl no older than 7. The child didn't cry, didn't move. She just stared past the guards, straight at the man inside. The woman swallowed hard. "Please," she said quietly, "can you hide my daughter just for one night?" The room went still. That wasn't a request. That was a confession. Vincent leaned back, studying her face. "Do you have any idea whose door you're standing at?" he asked. "I do," she replied without hesitation. "That's why I'm here." One of the guards shifted his hand toward his weapon. Vincent raised a finger. "Stop." Then he looked down at the girl. Her sleeve was torn, and fear in her eyes that didn't come from imagination. Vincent realized something then. Whatever was chasing them was dangerous enough that this woman chose him over the police. And if he said yes, there would be no turning back. Stay with me until the end, because what he learns about that little girl's past forces the Mafia boss to make the most dangerous decision of his life. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Now let's get into it. Vincent Torino wasn't a man who got surprised anymore. After 23 years running the East Side operations, after surviving 3 attempts on his life and countless betrayals, nothing shocked him. But this woman standing in his doorway with rain dripping from her dark hair and desperation carved into every line of her face, she was different. His penthouse sat 40 floors above the city, accessible only through a private elevator that required 2 separate keycards and facial recognition. The building's security was tighter than most government facilities, yet somehow this stranger had made it past everything. "Marcus," Vincent said, without taking his eyes off the woman. "How exactly did she get up here?" The guard shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, she said she had information about the Thompson shipment. Security let her through." Vincent's jaw tightened. The Thompson shipment had been hijacked 3 weeks ago. $2 million in merchandise, gone without a trace. Someone had leaked the route, the timing, everything. He'd been hunting for answers ever since. "What's your name?" Vincent asked the woman. "Sarah Chen," she replied, her voice steadier now despite the tremor in her hands. "And this is Emma." The little girl looked up at her mother, then back at Vincent. Her eyes were too knowing for someone so young. She'd seen things, bad things. Vincent stood slowly, his movements deliberate. At 6'3" with shoulders that filled out his custom suit, he cut an imposing figure. Most people took a step back when he approached. Sarah held her ground. "Sarah Chen," he repeated, testing the name. "You work for the feds? Some kind of undercover operation?" "No," she said firmly. "I'm a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital. Night shift, pediatric ward. A nurse." Vincent studied her scrubs beneath the rain-soaked jacket, the comfortable shoes, the calloused hands that spoke of long hours on her feet. It checked out, but that didn't explain how she'd gotten past his security or why she was here. "You mentioned the Thompson shipment," Vincent said, settling back into his chair. "What do you know about it?" Sarah's grip tightened on Emma's shoulder. "I know who took it. I know where it is. And I know they're coming for us tonight." The room felt smaller suddenly. Vincent's 2 guards, Marcus and Tony, exchanged glances. Information like this didn't come free, and it certainly didn't come from random nurses showing up at midnight. "Keep talking," Vincent said. Sarah looked down at Emma, who was clutching a small, stuffed rabbit against her chest. The toy was worn, well-loved, but Vincent noticed something else. A small tear in the fabric, fresh stitching that didn't match the original thread. "My brother Danny," Sarah began, her voice dropping to just above a whisper. "He's been working security for different companies around the city. Legitimate work, or so I thought. 3 weeks ago, he showed up at my apartment with Emma. Said he needed me to watch her for a few days while he handled some business. Vincent waited. In his experience, the most important information always came after the pause. He never came back, Sarah continued. Yesterday, I found out why. He was part of the crew that hit your shipment, but something went wrong. Really wrong. Marcus stepped closer. What kind of wrong? The kind that gets people killed, Sarah replied. Danny called me 2 days ago from a burner phone. Said the crew was being eliminated one by one. Someone wanted loose ends tied up permanently. He told me they'd come for Emma if they couldn't find him. Vincent felt the familiar cold calculation settling over his thoughts. A heist crew being systematically eliminated meant someone was cleaning house. Someone with resources and connections. Where's your brother now? He asked. Dead. Sarah's voice cracked slightly on the word. They found his body this morning in the river. Made it look like an overdose, but Danny never touched drugs. Not after what happened to our parents. Emma shifted closer to her mother, her small fingers finding Sarah's hand. The child hadn't spoken a word since arriving, but Vincent could see she understood more than she should. Why bring her to me? Vincent asked. Why not the police? Sarah's laugh was bitter, hollow. Because the police can't protect us from Marco Salvatore. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Vincent's expression hardened, his hands stilling completely on the arms of his chair. Marco Salvatore. The name carried weight in certain circles. Weight and blood and a reputation for creative brutality that made even hardened criminals nervous. Salvatore, Vincent repeated slowly. You're telling me Marco Salvatore was behind the Thompson job? I'm telling you my brother died because he found out who was really running the operation, Sarah said. And now they think Emma knows something. They think Danny told her where he hid whatever he took from that shipment. Vincent looked at the little girl again. 7 years old, maybe 8. Dark hair like her mother's, but her eyes held secrets that no child should carry. Did he? Vincent asked quietly. Did Danny tell her anything? Sarah's hesitation lasted only a second, but it was enough. I don't know, she said, but they think he did, and they're coming tonight. Marcus moved to the window, checking the street below through a gap in the heavy curtains. Boss, he said without turning around, we've got movement. Black SUVs, 3 blocks out. Moving this direction. Vincent stood again, his mind racing through possibilities and consequences. Harboring this woman and child meant war with Marco Salvatore. It meant putting his entire operation at risk for people he didn't know and couldn't trust. But it also meant answers. And Vincent had been looking for those answers for 3 weeks. How long do we have? He asked Marcus. 10 minutes, maybe 15 if they're being careful. Vincent walked to his desk, opened the top drawer, and pulled out a secure phone. He dialed a number from memory. It's me, he said when the call connected. Clear the building. Everyone out except essential personnel. And activate the lockdown protocols. He hung up and looked at Sarah. You've got 30 seconds to tell me everything your brother said about that shipment. Everything he took. Everything he knew. Everyone involved. Because once those elevators stop running and those blast doors seal, we're all committed to this path. Sarah's hands shook as she reached into her jacket pocket. Vincent's guards tensed, but she moved slowly, deliberately, pulling out a crumpled piece of paper and a small USB drive. Danny gave me this the night he brought Emma, she said, placing both items on Vincent's desk. He made me promise to keep it safe, said if anything happened to him, I should find someone powerful enough to protect her and smart enough to understand what it means. Vincent picked up the paper first. It was covered in Danny's handwriting, numbers, and addresses scattered across the page in what looked like code. But Vincent recognized some of the locations. Warehouse districts, shipping routes, drop points he'd used himself over the years. The USB drive was unmarked, generic, could contain anything or nothing. What's on it? Vincent asked. Financial records? Sarah said. Bank transfers, shell company documents, shipping manifests, everything Danny copied before the job went sideways. Marcus checked his watch. Boss, 7 minutes. Vincent slipped the drive into his computer. Files populated the screen, dozens of them. Bank statements showing transactions in the millions. Corporate documents linking legitimate businesses to offshore accounts. And photos. Surveillance shots of men Vincent recognized, including some from his own organization. His blood went cold. This wasn't just about the Thompson shipment. This was about something much bigger. Your brother wasn't just part of the heist crew, Vincent said slowly. He was gathering intelligence. Sarah nodded. He figured it out too late. The job was never about the merchandise. It was about getting access to shipping records, client lists, everything needed to map out your entire operation. Vincent's mind raced. Marco Salvatore hadn't just stolen $2 million in goods. He'd stolen Vincent's business infrastructure. Every contact, every route, every carefully built relationship over 2 decades. Emma tugged on her mother's sleeve. Sarah knelt down, and the little girl whispered something in her ear. Sarah's face went pale. "What did she say?" Vincent asked. "She remembers one of the men from Danny's apartment," Sarah said, her voice barely audible. "A tall man with scars on his neck. He told Danny they knew about the girl." Vincent's hands clenched into fists. Giovanni Reese, Salvatore's enforcer. The scars came from a knife fight 10 years ago, and the man had a reputation for being thorough. If Reese was involved, this wasn't just about eliminating witnesses. It was personal. "Marcus," Vincent said without taking his eyes off the computer screen. "How many men do we have in the building?" 12, counting us. Call Rodriguez and Chen. Tell them to bring everyone they can trust. We're about to have company." The secure phone on Vincent's desk buzzed. He answered on the first ring. "Sir," came the voice of his building security chief. "We've got a problem. 3 vehicles just pulled up outside. 8 men, all armed. They're not trying to hide it." Vincent looked at Sarah and Emma. The child had curled up in the leather chair beside his desk, still clutching her stuffed rabbit. She looked so small, so vulnerable, but those eyes held something that reminded Vincent of himself at that age. Determination, survival instinct. "Listen to me carefully," Vincent said to Sarah. "In about 30 seconds, this building is going into full lockdown. Steel shutters over every window, reinforced doors, independent power supply. We can hold out for hours if we need to." "What about Emma?" Sarah asked. "She'll be safe here. Safer than anywhere else in the city right now." Vincent pulled up another file on his computer. Security footage from the building's parking garage, time-stamped from earlier that evening. He watched Sarah's car pull in, saw her get out with Emma, saw them take the elevator to the lobby. But there was something else. A figure in the shadows, staying just out of camera range. Someone had been watching, following them. "They knew you were coming here," Vincent said. "This isn't a coincidence. Someone wanted you to lead them to me." Sarah's face crumpled. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I just wanted to keep her safe." "You did what you had to do," Vincent said. "But now we all have to live with the consequences." The building's alarm system activated with a low, steady tone. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. Vincent heard the heavy thud of blast doors sealing throughout the building. Emma looked up from her chair. "Are we trapped?" she asked in a small voice. The first words she'd spoken since arriving. Vincent walked over and knelt beside her chair, bringing himself to her eye level. "No, sweetheart. We're protected. There's a difference." She studied his face for a long moment. "Uncle Danny said you were dangerous." "I am," Vincent replied honestly. "But not to you." Emma nodded solemnly, as if this explanation made perfect sense to her. "He said you keep your promises." "I do." "Then promise me something," she said, her small hand reaching out to touch his arm. "Promise me my mom won't get hurt." Vincent looked up at Sarah, then back at Emma. This child had already lost her uncle. She'd been running for her life for days, and now she was asking him, a man she'd just met, to guarantee her mother's safety. In his world, promises were currency. They were contracts written in blood and honored with violence. He didn't make them lightly. "I promise," he said. Marcus appeared at his shoulder. "Boss, they're moving. Lobby level, coming up the stairs." Vincent stood and moved to his desk. He opened another drawer and pulled out a pistol, checking the clip automatically. "How many floors?" "They're bypassing the regular floors, heading straight for the express elevator shaft. Someone gave them the building schematics. That meant they had inside help. Someone in Vincent's organization had sold him out." The betrayal stung, but it didn't surprise him. In his line of work, loyalty was always temporary. "Sarah," Vincent said, his voice taking on the commanding tone his men knew meant business. "Take Emma into the safe room. Behind that bookshelf there's a hidden door. Fingerprint scanner on the left side, third shelf down. What about you? I'm going to end this." Emma slipped off the chair and walked over to Vincent. Without warning, she hugged his leg. "Thank you for keeping your promise," she whispered. Vincent felt something shift inside his chest. Something he hadn't felt in years. It might have been protectiveness. It might have been hope. Whatever it was, it changed everything. Because now this wasn't just about business. It wasn't just about revenge or territory or money. It was about a little girl who'd trusted him with her mother's life. And Vincent Torino never broke a promise. The sound of footsteps echoed through the stairwell. Heavy boots, moving with purpose. Vincent counted at least 6 distinct patterns, maybe more. They weren't trying to be quiet anymore. Sarah disappeared behind the bookshelf with Emma, the hidden door sealing shut with a barely audible click. Vincent tested the fingerprint scanner one more time to make sure it would recognize his print if needed. The safe room had its own air supply, communication system, and enough provisions for 3 days. Emma would be protected no matter what happened out here. Marcus positioned himself by the main door, weapon drawn. Tony took the window side, even though the blast shutters made it impossible for anyone to enter that way. Vincent walked to his desk and pulled up the building's security feeds on his monitor. 8 men in the lobby, 3 more circling the building's perimeter, all carrying automatic weapons, all moving like they knew exactly where they were going. This wasn't a scouting mission. This was an execution squad. Vincent's secure phone buzzed. Unknown number. He let it ring twice before answering. "Vincent Torino," came Marco Salvatore's voice, smooth as aged wine and twice as poisonous. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." "Marco," Vincent replied, keeping his tone conversational. "Funny thing about ownership. Sometimes what you think is yours was never really yours to begin with." Salvatore's laugh was cold, calculating. "The nurse and her daughter walked into your building 20 minutes ago. I'm willing to make this simple. Send them down, and my men walk away. You keep breathing. I keep breathing. Everyone wins." Vincent looked at the USB drive still plugged into his computer. The financial records painted a clear picture. Salvatore had been systematically infiltrating legitimate businesses, using them to launder money and move product. The Thompson shipment had been a cover operation, designed to steal Vincent's client database and shipping routes. "Here's the thing, Marco," Vincent said, scrolling through another file. "I've been looking at some very interesting documents. Bank transfers from your offshore accounts to certain city officials. Shipping manifests that show you've been using my routes for the past 6 months. Payment records to someone inside my organization." The line went quiet for a moment. When Salvatore spoke again, his voice had lost its casual tone. "You're playing a dangerous game, Vincent. That information doesn't belong to you. Actually, it does now, along with copies stored in 3 separate locations, programmed to upload to federal databases if I don't check in every 12 hours. Vincent was bluffing about the automatic uploads, but Salvatore didn't need to know that. In this business, perception was often more powerful than reality. The building's intercom crackled to life. Salvatore's voice echoed through every floor. "Vincent, my men are already inside your building. We control the lobby, the parking garage, and every exit. This can end quietly, or it can end with your penthouse becoming a crime scene. Your choice." Vincent muted the intercom and looked at Marcus. "Status report. They're moving up the emergency stairs. Floors 20 through 30 are clear, but they're bypassing the express elevators. Someone definitely gave them building layouts. Vincent's jaw clenched. Only 5 people had access to complete building schematics. 2 were dead, killed in last year's territory war. 2 were in the room with him right now. That left 1 person. "Get Rodriguez on the phone," Vincent told Tony. "Now." Tony dialed the number. It went straight to voicemail. Vincent tried the backup number. Same result. Rodriguez had been with Vincent's organization for 8 years. Trusted with sensitive operations, privy to security protocols, treated like family. The betrayal cut deeper than Vincent expected. "Boss," Marcus said, checking his earpiece. "Our guys on floors 15 and 20 are reporting gunfire. Salvatore's men aren't just coming up. They're clearing each floor as they go." Vincent's blood went cold. There were innocent people in this building. Security guards working the night shift, cleaning crews, a few residents who'd chosen to stay in during the lockdown. "Tell our men to fall back," Vincent ordered. "Get everyone to the safe floors. No unnecessary casualties." Through the computer monitor, Vincent watched Salvatore's men move through the building like a military operation. They knew exactly where to go, which doors to breach, how to disable security systems. This level of coordination required months of planning. His secure phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number, but Vincent recognized the writing style immediately. "Uncle Danny hid something in my rabbit. The bad man doesn't know." Emma Vincent looked toward the bookshelf concealing the safe room. That little girl was 7 years old, traumatized by her uncle's death, running for her life. But she'd been smart enough to hide crucial information and brave enough to share it when it mattered. He walked to the bookshelf and pressed his thumb to the scanner. The door slid open silently. "Emma," he called softly, "can you bring your rabbit out here for a minute?" Sarah appeared first, her face pale but determined. Emma followed, clutching the worn, stuffed animal against her chest. "Show me what Uncle Danny hid," Vincent said, kneeling down to Emma's level. With careful fingers, Emma opened the small tear Vincent had noticed earlier. Inside the rabbit's stuffing was a micro SD card, no bigger than a fingernail. Vincent slipped the card into his computer. New files appeared on screen. Not financial records this time. Video files, security footage from inside Salvatore's warehouse operations, conversations between Salvatore and city officials, payment schedules for corrupt cops and judges. Danny Chen hadn't just been gathering intelligence on the Thompson shipment. He'd been building a case against Salvatore's entire operation. This wasn't just evidence of theft or money laundering. This was enough to bring down half the corrupt infrastructure in the city. "Your uncle was a very brave man," Vincent told Emma, "and very smart." Emma nodded solemnly. "He said sometimes you have to be brave even when you're scared." Vincent felt that shift in his chest again. This child had already shown more courage than most adults he knew. She deserved better than a world where 7-year-olds had to hide evidence in stuffed animals and run from killers in the middle of the night. Marcus's voice cut through his thoughts. "Boss, they're on floor 35? 5 minutes out." Vincent stood and walked back to his desk. He copied the files from both USB drives onto a secure server, then initiated an encrypted upload to a contact at the FBI field office. Not someone he trusted exactly, but someone who owed him a favor and had a reputation for playing things straight. "Sarah," he said without looking away from the computer, "I need you to listen very carefully. In about 3 minutes, men with guns are going to break down that door. When that happens, you and Emma get back in the safe room, and you don't come out until I tell you it's safe. What about you?" Vincent pulled 2 more weapons from his desk drawer. He handed one to Marcus and kept one for himself. "I'm going to keep my promise." The elevator dinged softly. Vincent's head snapped up. That was impossible. The elevators were locked down, completely disabled, unless someone had override codes. "Marcus," Vincent said quietly, "that elevator shouldn't be working." Marcus moved toward the elevator doors, weapon raised. The doors slid open with mechanical precision. Rodriguez stepped out, hands raised, face grim. Behind him stood two of Salvatore's men, weapons trained on the back of his head. "I'm sorry, Vincent," Rodriguez said, his voice thick with regret. "They have my daughter, my granddaughter. I had to choose." Vincent felt the familiar cold calculation settling over his thoughts. Rodriguez had betrayed him, yes, but not from greed or ambition, from love, from the same protective instinct that had brought Sarah to his door tonight. "Where are they?" Vincent asked. "Safe," Rodriguez replied. "For now. Salvatore promised to release them after this is finished." Vincent almost laughed. Marco Salvatore's promises were worth less than the air used to speak them. Rodriguez knew that. They all knew that. But when it came to family, logic became secondary to hope. "Let him go," Vincent told Salvatore's men. "Rodriguez did what you asked. Honor your agreement." One of the gunmen smiled, the expression cold and predatory. "Mr. Salvatore will honor his agreement when you honor yours, the nurse and the girl." Now, Vincent looked at Rodriguez, then at the gunman, then at the computer screen still displaying Danny Chen's evidence files. The upload was at 67%. He needed more time. "Here's what's going to happen," Vincent said, his voice carrying the authority that had commanded respect for 2 decades. "You're going to put down those weapons and walk away. Rodriguez is going to collect his family and disappear for a while. And Marco Salvatore is going to find himself explaining some very interesting financial records to federal investigators." The gunman's smile widened. "You're not in a position to make demands." Vincent pressed a key on his computer. The building's sound system activated, filling every floor with audio from the security footage Emma had provided. Salvatore's voice echoed through the speakers, discussing bribery payments and drug distribution routes. "Actually," Vincent said, "I think I am." The gunmen exchanged uncertain glances. This wasn't part of their plan. They'd expected to find a cornered man, desperate and willing to negotiate. Instead, they'd walked into a trap. Vincent's phone buzzed. The upload had completed. 73 gigabytes of evidence, now safely stored on federal servers with automated distribution protocols. Even if Salvatore killed everyone in this room, the information would surface. "Game over, Marco," Vincent said into his phone. "Check your email in about 10 minutes. You'll find some very interesting reading material." The gunmen raised their weapons, but Vincent was already moving. He dove behind his desk as Marcus opened fire. Tony emerged from his position by the windows, catching the gunman in a crossfire. Rodriguez dropped to the floor, crawling toward cover behind an overturned chair. Vincent couldn't tell if he'd been hit or was just trying to stay out of the line of fire. The firefight lasted less than 30 seconds. When the smoke cleared, both of Salvatore's men were down. Marcus had taken a bullet in the shoulder but was still standing. Tony was checking Rodriguez, who was clutching his leg but alive. Vincent stood slowly, his ears ringing from the gunfire. He looked toward the bookshelf concealing the safe room, knowing that Sarah and Emma were listening to every sound, waiting to learn if they were safe or if their nightmare was just beginning. His secure phone rang. Vincent answered without checking the caller ID. "Vincent," came a voice he didn't recognize. Female, professional, with the clipped efficiency of federal law enforcement. "This is Agent Patricia Hawkins, FBI. I believe you have some information we'd like to discuss." Vincent smiled for the first time that night. "Agent Hawkins, I was hoping to hear from you." "Vincent," Agent Hawkins continued, her voice cutting through the ringing silence. "We've received your uploaded files. Impressive collection. Marco Salvatore's operation just became a federal priority." Vincent walked to the window, looking down at the street 40 floors below. Salvatore's remaining men were retreating to their vehicles, but they weren't leaving. They were regrouping. "How long before you can get here?" Vincent asked. 20 minutes. Maybe less if traffic cooperates. We might not have 20 minutes. Through the building's security feeds, Vincent watched more vehicles arrive. Not just SUVs this time. A panel van, 2 motorcycles, and what looked like a modified armored truck. Salvatore was escalating. Marcus appeared at Vincent's shoulder, pressing a makeshift bandage against his wounded arm. "Boss, We've got a bigger problem. Building management just called. They're reporting a gas leak in the basement. Cities sending emergency crews. Vincent's blood went cold. There was no gas leak. Salvatore was creating a reason to evacuate the building, forcing everyone into the open where his men could finish what they'd started. How many civilians still inside? Vincent asked. 12 residents who didn't leave during the lockdown. 3 security guards on the lower floors. The cleaning crew was told to go home early. Vincent did the math quickly. 15 innocent people, plus Sarah and Emma. All of them now targets because of the information hidden in a little girl's stuffed rabbit. Tony, Vincent called across the room. Get on the radio. Tell our people to start moving civilians to the reinforced floors. Anyone who can't fight stays in the safe zones. Tony nodded and grabbed his communication device. Vincent heard him coordinating with the building's remaining security team. His voice calm despite the chaos. Rodriguez struggled to his feet, using the wall for support. Blood seeped through his pants leg, but the wound didn't look fatal. Vincent, Rodriguez said, his voice heavy with shame. My granddaughter. She's only 5 years old. Salvatore's people, they showed me pictures of her walking to school. Said they knew her schedule, her route, everything. Vincent understood. In their world, family was both strength and weakness. The people you protected were also the people who could be used against you. Where is she now? Vincent asked. Safe house across town. At least I hope she's safe. Vincent's secure phone buzzed with a text message. He read it quickly, then showed the screen to Marcus. Building surrounded. Exits blocked. Federal backup delayed due to coordinated traffic incidents across the city. Agent Hawkins. Salvatore wasn't just targeting the building. He was creating chaos throughout the city to prevent law enforcement from responding. This operation had been planned for weeks, maybe months. Vincent walked back to the bookshelf and activated the hidden door. Sarah appeared immediately, her face pale but determined. Emma stood beside her, still clutching the now empty rabbit. How are you holding up? Vincent asked Emma. The little girl looked up at him with those 2 knowing eyes. Uncle Danny used to say that being scared doesn't mean you're not brave. It just means you're paying attention. Vincent knelt down to her level. Your uncle was a very smart man. What else did he tell you? Emma glanced at her mother, then back at Vincent. He said if something happened to him, I should tell you about the boat. What boat? The one with the blue stripe. Dock 17 at the marina. He said there's another hiding place there with more important things. Vincent felt pieces clicking into place. Danny Chen hadn't just gathered evidence against Salvatore. He'd created multiple backup plans, multiple hiding spots. The marina was 15 minutes away by car, assuming the roads were clear. Sarah grabbed Vincent's arm. You can't be thinking of leaving. It's too dangerous. It's more dangerous to stay, Vincent replied. Salvatore's not going to stop. He'll bring this entire building down if he has to. But if we can get to that boat, we might find something that ends this permanently. Marcus checked his weapon and spare ammunition. Boss, with respect, that's a suicide mission. They've got us surrounded, and the marina's completely exposed. Vincent looked at Emma one last time, then at Sarah, then at his wounded men. Sometimes the most dangerous decision wasn't about strategy or survival. It was about choosing what kind of man you wanted to be when everything fell apart. Marcus, Vincent said quietly, get them to the marina. Take the service tunnels. I'll handle Salvatore. Sarah grabbed his arm. You promised you'd keep us safe. I am, Vincent replied. This is how I keep that promise. One knock at midnight had changed everything. A desperate mother, a brave little girl, and a mafia boss who discovered that sometimes the people worth protecting are the ones who teach you what protection really means.